So today's lesson is with our very own Rob Leeming, and his lesson is the flower of life. So how we can use this symbol to recognize shifting vision in our lives is the subject. So please welcome Rob.
So on your itinerary, your spiritual journey today, we have the flower of life symbol on the front cover. And if everybody has a pen available, and if you don't have a pen, raise your hand, we can get one to you. So this is a symbol that has meant a lot to me. I've learned a lot from it. I've been learning from the land for about the last 19 years. I've been building a place called Foxhaven, and that's what I was originally asked to talk about. But rather than talk about Foxhaven, I'd rather talk about a lesson learned from Foxhaven. And it's about a natural life, a natural way of being. In 1992, I joined the military, and I started to experience a very unnatural life, one full of control, one that you're not necessarily dictating what you are doing and when you're going to be doing it or how you're going to be doing it. Somebody else of higher rank has always told you what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Well, in 2001, I decided that I'd like to separate from that and start living my life more in line with my vision and my beliefs, my choices. And so if we can enter into this little exercise, and you'll notice that this is full of flowers. And if you can just place your pen in the center of one of those flowers, and that represents this right now moment. And in this right now moment, you've got choices. You've got choices in all directions. And to me, that kind of represents chaos, because it's anything that you want to happen can happen. You could, hopefully you're not going to, but right now you could get up and you could walk out of here and you say, this guy has nothing to say. Or you can sit for a few minutes and see what there is to be heard, to be learned. If you go from this point and just start outlining it, these things are okay, we can color on them. And start picking a pathway. And go in any direction you want, and realize that you have at least two choices in each pathway that you choose. You have a higher path or a lower path. You have one aligned with light or dark or goodness or things that are less than desirable, love or hate. And we're all able to step in these directions at any point in time. And we recognize that with each of these petals, these are like the action of our life. We've made the choice. We've taken the intention and a choice. And then following that pathway is the action that works to manifest a different spot in life that we're come to. And so that's the flower of life. And the flower of life starts off as just one simple circle. When we're learning to draw it, it starts off as one circle. And then consciousness brings itself to the outside edge of that circle and it draws another circle. And then every intersecting point, it draws another circle. And eventually we end up with this pattern. This pattern is basically the fabric of the universe. Everything in manifestation started off as an idea, as a cell, dividing itself and creating itself into something of a desirable pattern. It can also teach us how to shift our focus in life. So if you could direct your attention to the image and pick out the pattern of the flower, and then you kind of look at the rest of the image and you can see the pattern of the flower. Okay? I'd like you to shift your vision to the little triangles. And those are like the void. Okay? Now when you shift your attention to the little triangles, it all becomes a bunch of triangles. Now the leaves of the flower of life, if you align yourself with one of those pathways, it cuts right through the flower, and now all of a sudden what comes apparent to us is all these pathways going in one direction. But then if we shift our vision again, we see that those pathways also go in a direction opposite of what we just witnessed. And then we shift it again, and it's still a different pattern, different choices in life. In that center point, that's where when we use meditation and mindfulness in our own experience, we find that silence where we can make the decisions that are best suited for us. And that comes with meditation. It's one of the things that I've stepped into in my journey is teaching meditation, teaching yoga, teaching that awareness of that right now moment that brings us to conscious decision making rather than compulsive decision making of how we've been advertised or how we've just always done things in the past. You know, sometimes we get stuck on this one path and we think that that's all there is, cradle to grave, that I need to do what my grandfather did, or I need to do what my father did, or I need to do what society is expecting of me. But when we recognize that every time that we do an action, we can choose a different action too. We can really take control of our life. So one of the things I learned from Foxhaven is how to live a natural life. I go to sleep when I'm tired. I wake up when I'm not. The land can teach us a lot of things. And right now, like Marilyn had suggested, the leaves, I couldn't have asked for better posters after this talk. Actually, that's one of the things about unity is everything just happens to flow. I didn't ask for it, it just happened. But the leaves are turning colors. And so I'd like to incorporate you guys into a breathing exercise right now. So, as we breathe in, just in your mind's eye, picture all the beautiful colors that the tree has to offer. As we breathe out, we find the leaves falling from the trees. The tree knows that if it holds on to things that were beneficial to it in the past, into a time that it can no longer use them, they become a burden. It's like in the wintertime, when the snow and the ice and all of the realizations of a completed cycle are manifesting, those leaves would weigh down the tree and it could break. But the tree knows, and so it lets them go. And it serves as compost for the next year. Breathing in, imagining the cloud, the colors. I'd like you to hold on to that breath at the top of the breath. Hold on to it just as long as you can. Just after a few seconds, or if a person has really done this for a while, a minute or two. That which brings us life and brings us health can become toxic. And so when we recognize something is toxic to us, we need to let it go. We let it go effortlessly. So we let go out of our mouth. That's the winds of fall, dropping the leaves off the trees and preparing it for winter. Another thing that I've become aware of is like the stories we read in school. You can open your eyes if you like. The stories we've read in school about stories that have multiple endings. You know, you come up to a certain page and then all of a sudden you're given all these choices. And so the same book, the same pathway, the same book that everybody else next to you has, all has different outcomes. And that reminds me of how we are as an individual. You know, we're all given basically the same elements, same opportunities of experience to some extent. But it's like a recipe. We take all these things that we've been presented to us and we all turn out to be a unique individual. You know, we're all bringing different experiences into our life experience, and we've created who we are and what we've experienced and what we're going to experience, because our actions are creating our world. You know, our thoughts helped us to determine what actions that we're using, but our actions are what determining what we find as a result in our life. So you're basically a story with many outcomes possible. And this flower of life pattern, it represents those opportunities. And when you look at it as like a three-dimensional image, we realize that this pattern just continues and continues and continues. So when we're conscious of it, we realize that we can always be taking those choices, those pathways, to our highest self, or our highest vision of what we can do and what we can be in our life. You get to pick your own adventure. It's a series of actions that brought you to where you're at today. For some of us, it was a left foot and then a right foot, and then a left foot and a right foot. Or an action that we're used to driving a car. It's a frequency. We get into the car, we get out of the car. It's all these things that have brought us to where we're at. Who you really are, is found by our conscious action. So if you were just moving your right foot and your left foot in random directions, you would have never found this building today. But you had a destination. And so in that destination, you kept your feet going in the right direction, or your steering wheel. And if we lose chance or lose focus of our destination, we end up just kind of wasting time in life. And I guess it's never really a waste, because we're always learning something. But it's not the direction that we find most favorable. Not the direction that we've maybe dreamed of as a child. And how long has it been since we've revisited those dreams that we had as a child? It's always right now is the best chance at being who you want to be. So the flower of life, it means so much to me that I've incorporated it into a tattoo that I've done on myself. And all the way through my arms, this whole pattern are pathways of the flower of life pattern. It's represented in all religions. It's represented in all cultures. Thousands and thousands of years old is this pattern. And this pattern is the basis of a lot of the different religions. And the basic pattern of this only involves one of the flowers. It's the first manifestation of those circles being drawn. That's the seed of life, or also known as Genesis. And in the 6 days of creation, it takes, once the intention is made, it takes 6 intentions beyond that, cycles, circles, cycles, right? And I think we are phonetically more clued in or keyed into the creation of life than what we realize. Those circles, those cycles, become in solar cycles, they come in lunar cycles. But for this, we're talking about the first 6 days that are talked of in creation. And it's 6 leaves, it's a 6 pattern that brings us to what we are. That's also indicative of the protons, neutrons, and electrons that make up our human experience. And in this pattern, we also find the tetrahedron. We'll have to do this. This could be a whole subject on itself. But we bring in the tetrahedron, which is like one of the most powerful symbols in the world, because all of the equal-sided symbols, I guess, like cubes and Metatron's cube and all this, they are all manifested from this, and they're all available in that pattern. And so, just recognizing this flower of life and our ways of being natural. We've stepped away from a natural way of being for some time. We live in artificial lighting, artificial air, in shelters that they don't remind you of nature much. And so when we spend time in nature, we start to learn these natural ways of being. And that's what the flower of life has taught me, is we come, we go, We're given that chance of opportunity to make different choices. And that's what nature is always doing. Nature is always changing, but it's always growing. Every animal in nature is working towards its benefit, but also the benefit of everybody and everything around it. It seems like humans are the only animals on the planet that we're not quite aligned with that yet. But we are. We're recognizing that there's change that needs to happen. We're recognizing the solutions to the problems that we face. And when we give our energy to the solutions, we no longer empower the problems. And so when we've experienced something in our life, we don't keep bringing it forward into our right now moments. We have to leave it behind where it belongs as the compost. It's helped us grow to where we're at right now. We can focus on where we want to be. We can make choices. Sometimes those choices still don't end up in the direction we want. So we've taken a diversion. But when we reconnect with that, even if you've taken a diversion of several leaves in a direction you didn't find favorable, you recognize that when we take a different path, we're still coming right back to that destination where we want to be. It's all connected. Just like we are. We're all connected. If I do something, it's affecting you. Just like if you do something, it's affecting me. Sometimes I'm going to take what I've learned and I'm going to take that into my experience, and sometimes I'm not. I'm going to use it as that compost, as the opportunity for growth. So at Foxhaven, I've been learning just how nature works, and it's been a beautiful life experience for me. Like I said, I spent 9 years in the military, and there was a lot of things that we're asked to do that are in the disguise of defense of our nation, defense of people, defense of humanity. But when I realized that all of those steps weren't actually creating the results that I desired, I stepped away from that. And now I'm controlling my life in a way that I find favorable. I'm up here today. I never thought I would be up here. 10 years ago, I would be like, no, that's not the pathway that I ever thought for myself. But when I started recognizing these tools of transformation, inner transformation that works to build my outer experience, I find happiness, I find simplicity, and it's in a simple life. Nature, everything is simple. When I've brought simplicity into my life, I found bliss. I teach yoga now. I teach meditation. Another couple things I always kind of played with, but never thought I would be the person at the front of the class teaching. I do that through the Yoga Collective, and I do it privately. But it's recognizing these life lessons that realize I need to share. I need to share what I've learned, because I see a lot of people who are still not finding that bliss in life. There's struggle. There's a constant concern of what I have to do. Well, I've created a simplicity, but there's nothing I really have to do anymore. It's all things that I get to do. When I was in business and when I was active duty, I'd wake up each morning and go, oh God, what do I have to do today? Well, now I wake up and I'm thankful. I hold gratitude for the things that I get to do today. Because just waking up is a gift in itself. And there's whole different levels of waking up. We have just being asleep versus being awake and coming in here. But we also have a conscious awareness. And there's many different levels of that. And so when we are always focused on our growth, we're always recognizing that I just achieved this, but now there's this and this and this. When we stop growing, that's when we start to atrophy. We start to find our way back to a new experience. We're getting ready to hand back these bodies if we stop using them. If we stop enjoying the experiences that we have and that which we're gaining from from our interactions day to day, there's no sense in being here. You know, we are spirit. Right now we're just using a body. We get to attach to this possession instead of the experience that it provides, the growth, the lessons, the opportunities that we're given. Today, you're all right here in Yakima. It's a beautiful place to live. I've lived all over the country, and I consciously chose this valley to come and live in. It's been a great experience for me. But we have to realize that tomorrow, we have these wonderful technologies of transportation available to us. And tomorrow, this time tomorrow, for a small investment, you could be all the way on the other side of the planet. Or you could be on the other side of the state. Just walking. Just by the end of the day walking, you could be 20 or 30 miles from this point right now. And that's just putting one foot in front of the other. So just keep in mind what we're wanting to build in our lives, the destinations that we're wanting to achieve, the life experiences that we want to bring into our awareness. And using nature, how lovely it is to let things go. Those leaves, or those ideas, or those experiences that are no longer serving us, they should be let go. So that way we can go in through the winter for inner contemplation. It's like the bear, they hibernate, so they spend a lot of time. I wonder how much time they spend thinking, contemplating. What is it to be a bear, right? But what is it to be human? What is it to be a humane being? And a being, we're the only beings. The bear is a bear, the cat is a cat, the dog is a dog, but we're a human being. And we're being whatever we consciously desire to be at any point in time. And if we take that into our conscious awareness with every breath, so that's another thing with the flower of life pattern. Imagine with every leaf being a breath, the center place, holding it for a moment, choosing consciously where we want to go next, and releasing that breath is the next choice of action. And we're always flowing, we're flowering through life when we are doing it consciously rather than compulsively. Are there any questions? I think the time is about up. So thank you all very much.